I'm Hannah,
And I'm Steve.
and today we're interviewing Maddy Kelly, one of the Juju Tees artists. We actually have never met Maddy in person. We just know her from the University of New Orleans, um, I think through Greek life. And then we have just kind of admired Maddy's art over the past couple of years of like following her on Twitter and Instagram and stuff. And do you want to kind of tell the story of like how like Juju Tees came to be, but then like Maddy also like how she became part of this.
We first discovered Maddie kind of on Twitter because she would post her drawings on there. And we really liked this one that she did of Ariana Grande for reference. And so we like messaged her, we're like, can we buy this from you? And Maddie was like, it's just like a sketch. We were like, no, we really want to buy it. And so that's how we kind of like got introduced to Maddie. And then we started following her. And when we decided to start the business, Maddie was like the first person that we thought of to like do it with, just because all of your stuff is so cool. And yeah, that's kind of the story of it.
I love that.
Yeah, I guess just like tell us about yourself, like introduce yourself to those listening, watching.
Well, I got into art when I was about like between 10 and 12, because my older cousin, who was like a big sister to me, she was really into art and she was always drawing. And so whenever I would hang out with her, she always had like coloring pages of her sketches ready for me because I like to color. And then I got into the habit of like drawing them because I wanted to see if I could copy like her style and like what she was doing. And it just became like a thing. Like anytime I would see like a photo on the internet or like something in my house, I would like sit there and I would draw it. And like I just had like random things. And I actually really got into drawing people when I started doing anime, which is like how a lot of artists apparently start. Because like anime is like really easy to just kind of mimic. And like I guess it like it makes it easy to kind of get like facial features right and stuff. I don't know, but apparently that's a thing. Like I was drawing Kingdom Hearts characters and stuff. And then from there I would draw my favorite celebrities or like just my family. It was a really weird process of getting into art. And I don't really know at what point I started to do it seriously, but yeah, it was just since I was that young, I would just be doing everything.
At the University of New Orleans, you studied art, right? Your major was like art related.
Yeah, so I originally went into UNO with a psychology major.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, and it was the beginning of my sophomore year that I was like, this isn't what I want to do. I was like, I don't like my classes. Like, I'm not doing well. Like, I don't know if it's just that, like, I just can't keep up or if I'm just not passionate about this, but like, I don't want to continue with psychology. And my friend at the time was like, why aren't you in school for art? Like, you're always drawing, like, you're really good at it. You can make a living off of that. Like, you could do so much. And I was like, yeah, you have a point. Like, why am I not here for art? And I think it's because at the time I still considered art just kind of like a hobby, like not something I would really make money off of, like not something I saw myself doing as a career. More of just like a little, like, like, yeah, I can do art, kind of like bragging thing. But I was like, yeah, like there's so much I can do with art. And at the time I was like, I could animate for Disney. Like I could do so much with it. So I changed my major that following day that I like realized it. And so the second semester of my sophomore year is when I started my art classes. And that was when I met my professor Cheryl, who was kind of like my mentor throughout the whole of my um all of my classes in college. So she helped me keep my head on track because like I always like I get stuck with certain things. So she was kind of like always there to be like, all right, you're thinking too much, you're overthinking, you're doing this, you're doing that. So yeah, it was really great. I'm glad I changed my major because art was where I needed to be.
Yeah, was that kind of when you did get like more serious about it as a career, like once you changed your major?
Yeah, it really was. I started to do it more, like I started taking it more seriously. I was like, okay, like if I want to do this as a career, I can't see it as a hobby anymore. Like this is something that'll make me money and it'll, it'll be what I'm known for in my career and stuff. So I started to practice more. Like I started to try and like better my talent instead of just kind of, you know, lollygagging about it. So like I tried to draw more than what I'm like used to drawing. Like I started to do like landscapes, which I don't normally do. Like I was
Mm.
practicing with like different things rather than just the things I was used to.
Does that
Uh,
also include like different mediums?
yes. Art school, it really opened me up to a lot of mediums. I was only ever used to using like acrylic paints or like
Mm.
charcoal. But being in art school, they made you use all different types of mediums. So they had you use colored pencils, watercolors, gouache, India ink. We had to do fresco one year, which was really fun. And then my senior year was when I finally did oil paint for the first time because I always wanted to try oil paint, but it's so expensive to buy, and it was so much like and so complicated that I was like, I don't even know where to begin with all of this. And so I didn't want to spend that much money on supplies when I didn't know what I was doing. But I finally got there. So, but yeah, but they had us do everything. I took animation classes, so we had a lot of practice with like Photoshop, illustration, all of that.
Who was your teacher for that? I remember this guy who used to be over there who was kind of cool.
Dan, his name is Dan. He was my animation teacher. He's really awesome. He explained things really well and he was always really patient with me because I am not tech savvy. So whenever I had his class, I always had a bunch of questions and he was so patient because I was literally I would bring my laptop and it was, in the lab or whatever. And he would, do a demo. Like he had the screen and he had like his computer up and he's like, okay, we're going to do this today. And he's like, this is how you do it. And he would break it down step by step. And I would always get lost. I'd be like, as soon as he was done, I was like, Dan, I have so many questions. And he would just sit there and like make sure I understood it, which I really appreciate about him. All of the teachers there were so helpful. Like it was probably the best experience because I always felt like I was behind because like I had to take all these classes with new things that I've never tried before. And they didn't make me feel like I was, not, a true artist because I didn't know how to do these things. They like were like, I'm here to help you learn. You're gonna get this right, like there's no judgment.
When did you like transition to more digital artwork?
Probably my senior year, because I mean that was when I did like the most like diverse classes because I had so many that I had to take that I took in like my advanced animation class and then like a digital design sort of class both my senior year. That was when I really got into like digital work and I like got into the habit of like knowing how to use the different tools. Still kind of learning, that was really what got me into it is that like I realized how fun it was to do stuff on like my computer and how handy it was. And so I was like, I'm gonna learn, like, because everything's digital nowadays. So like, I have to learn. That was really what did it.
Yeah, your digital art, I mean all of your art is amazing, but your digital art is like I've never seen anything like it.
Thank you. Yeah. It's complicated sometimes, but I really do find that lately, especially, I've been doing a lot more digital work than like physical work. Like I haven't touched my actual sketchbooks in so long. Like they're so neglected because I just like it's so easy to just have my iPad on me and like to pull it out and just start drawing. Like it's just so much easier.
I think you need to introduce your friend behind you too.
Oh, this is Mark. He's my child. Hello. Say
He
hello.
is taking the best bath of his life.
This is his chair. I just kind of took over because it had the best lighting. But he sits here all day while the sun is out. I have all my windows open, so he loves this area. Oh my gosh. Oh, Rebel.
Okay, so I guess I'm kind of curious about like your process. So and if you want to talk about like the pieces that you designed for Juju Teas, feel free. But even aside from that, like I'm curious how like a piece starts for you and like what that whole process kind of looks like.
It's a really messy process. There's really no structure to it. Like for the majority of my designs for Juju Teas, let's start with that. I took them from my like digital journal that I like keep. Like sometimes whenever I start with like a reference photo, let's say on Pinterest or something that's I've come across just on social media, and I'll save it. And so when I go to my art journal, I'll like pull it up and I'll be like, okay, I'm seeing this reference. How can I make it my own? And then I just start doodling. That's literally my process. Like there's no different way of doing it. I honestly, it always starts with some type of reference photo that I found. And then I'm like, okay, I don't want to just copy this reference photo. Like, how can I, make it my own? And my friends have noticed that I like to take things and just make them look really like trippy. And so it's really just, it's a weird process. But yeah, it involves a lot of me just like starting over and doing it again, and then starting over and hating it, and then leaving it for a little bit, and then going back, and it's never consistent. But
I think
it
that
it's
makes
it's
sense.
still kind of a fun process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I do get something right, it's a really great feeling because like once the sketch is done, that's the hardest part in my opinion. And then I just go and find color palettes. Like I'll look at photos and be like, oh, I like the color palette for this, and just copy it into Procreate, and then I just use it, and it's really great.
Yeah, we talked to Zoe about this too, and she has like a similar, like going back and forth and finishing other
Yeah.
things. Um, do you have a sense of like when you're finished with a project?
Um, I'm like Zoe. I feel like I'm never truly finished. Even when I say I'm done, I usually go back and change things again. I think the thing with artists that we're our own worst critics, and that we're constantly, the issue that we always have is that we're always looking at the piece, so we're always seeing what's wrong with it, and we never give ourselves the chance to take a break and like, you know, step away and then come back and be like, oh, it's fine. We come back and we're like, oh my God, there's so much we could do different. Like as if we're constantly trying to better ourselves, which is good, but like it's also a very self-destructive thing to do. Like I'm constantly criticizing myself, and my friends are like, there's nothing wrong with what you've just made. Stop messing with it. Like it looks perfect as it is. And it's like, no, it's not finished. Like there's so much I could do different. And I think especially with digital work, it's so easy to go back and like erase something and like do something different. Um, but yeah, I that's my issue, is that I never truly feel like something's finished because I'm always like, I could do this differently, and I'll go back and change it multiple times.
Our next question for you is, what is your earliest memory involving art?
So growing up, my parents have always been like big art collectors.
Hmm.
Like they always tell us like, oh, y'all's inheritance is the art in this house. Like they have bought so much art, so many Jazz Fest posters, like it's ridiculous. And our house used to be covered in so many different artists' work. And I think being in that surrounding growing up, like how colorful they always kept our home, it kept me open, I guess, to like creative tendencies. Because I mean, I was always into like coloring a lot. Like everything had to be colorful for me growing up. Like if I had coloring pages, I was very, about making them as pretty as possible because I wanted them to look nice so that my parents wanted to hang them up and stuff. And so I think growing up with my parents being as into art as they were, and I also have like other family members who were into art and doing art as well. I think being surrounded by that and growing up in that environment really influenced who I am as an artist today.
Some of the designs that you have with Juju tees, so like I'm thinking specifically like the Don't Trust Your Government, the Black Lives Matter, and the Thank You for Smoking, like those all are, pieces of art, but they have kind of like a statement about them or are kind of conveying like a message. Do you ever get like nervous about how designs or like your art like that is received?
Yeah, I especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, I told myself if I was gonna do that design, I had to make sure I did it right. But I always really do worry, especially with like messages like that, like if I'm getting it wrong or if, somehow it's offensive to the community that I'm addressing. It it definitely I feel like most artists go through that where they're like, okay, like I want to do something to help this community and like, represent it somehow, but you worry that you're not doing right by them or that, they'll see it as more of an insult than a compliment sort of thing. So it's just something that I find myself always being careful with. Like if I'm gonna draw something for like a specific, movement that's going on, like especially Black Lives Matter with it being so important, um, I have to do my research first. Like I have to make sure that I'm well aware of everything that's going on and so I don't make any mistakes or slip ups for any reason. But
Yeah,
it is
for sure.
it's really difficult. And I get really nervous about doing it. But my friends, I always look to my friends and my family for like reassurance that like I'm doing something right. Um, and they'll tell me straight up like, oh, that probably won't be that great for what you're doing, or it's totally fine sort of situation. So everybody in my life's always honest with me about that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's nerve-wracking to do.
Yeah, I think it's really like important and I think it's really brave and um like kind of hearing from you like that you do your research and everything too. It's like
Yeah.
that's really awesome.
Does your family like look at all of your artwork?
Yes. Yes, they're my mom especially, anytime like because I used to have a studio like little space at my parents' house and I always put like my unfinished paintings in there, like that was where I stored them. And my mom would just go in there and she would start picking at them and be like, "Can I have this?" And I'm like, "It's not done. It's like half finished." Or like it's just a sketch, like it's on a canvas and it's not painted. And she's like, "But I like it." I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm supposed to like finish making these and sell them. You can't just like there's a herd of my paintings like all around the house, and I'm like, I could sell these. You're taking all of them. But yeah, my family has always supported me with art. They are my biggest fans. They're always my brothers, especially all three of them. Whenever like Juju Tea started, they were like, "Oh, have you made any more designs? Like, what else are you doing? Like, what how many sales have you made? Like, are you doing okay? Like, are people buying them?" And they're always aware. And my younger brother especially, because he really likes the Thank You for Smoking one. He's like, I'm telling all my friends to buy them because I love that design and I'm constantly getting compliments on it and like all this stuff. And so, yeah, my family loves my art. They're always there.
What things in life typically inspire your art?
That's a really good question. While I was in school, it was really like social media that really influenced my art, like inspire stuff. So like I did a lot of, celebrities like Ariana Grande. I do a lot of Harry Styles. I've perfected drawing him. Like it was really just anytime I was on social media and I came across a celebrity's photo that I really liked, it was always I had to draw it. Like it was so pleasing to my eye that I was like, I have to see if I can draw this out and like make it look just as good. But nowadays it really just is kind of depends like on the world around me and like my mood, I guess. I find that lately my mood and, you know, where I'm at in life has really like inspired and influenced my art the past at least like month or so. But it really just kind of depends. I kind of move around all over the place. Like sometimes I have no inspiration at all, so I'll go on Pinterest, which is my ride or die, and I have like a whole folder of art reference that like it's just like profiles of people's faces, and I'll just start drawing those just to have something done. And like usually that does spark something like, oh, this profile would be really cool if I drew it like this sort of situation. So it just kind of depends.
So we are wearing a couple of your designs here.
Yeah.
Were there any designs that you wanted to talk about, like the inspiration for them, or like anything specifically that you wanted to mention about them?
I always go back to the thank you for smoking one because that's my favorite. And it was actually inspired by my little brother because I mean, we're the two fans of weed in our house. So like he he's always, you know, like into that stuff. You know, he's a 19-year-old boy, so he's always about like, yeah, weed and stuff. So I kind of like took his energy and like I already had the like face of it doodled into my journal. And I was like, okay, like I can probably do something with this. Like this would look cool on a shirt or something. And so I think I had like a random color palette just saved in Procreate. And I was like, okay, will this work? And like, you know, was messing around with colors. And I'm like, this would be so cool if I put thank you for smoking because like it looks kind of trippy, like it fits. And my little brother just kind of like he was the one I went to for advice on that design. I was like, would you like change these colors? Do you like how this looks? Like, should I do something different? He was like, he would always give me his honest critiques too. He was like, oh yeah, like I would totally wear that. Like kind of he definitely inspired that one. Just his energy, I guess. And then the don't trust your government kids, the actual saying was like the last thing I put into that design. I had this girl, like the silhouette drawn out in my journal, and I was like, okay, like what can I do with this? Like this will be something. This could be fun. And so I just started drawing like random things like on her face, like the extra eye that I put at the top. And I was like, that'd be cool. Okay, so like she could be kind of like an alien. So I was like, okay, I need a color palette for this. And all like one thing led to another, and then like the bubbles were over her head. I was like, okay, I can put something in there. Like, should I put words? Should I put like, you know, random things? And at the time, it was like a time during Twitter where everybody was just like on about the government, and I was like, this is perfect. And then I just put, don't trust your government, kids, because I mean, that's where we were at in the world when I was drawing that. So yeah, it was, my designs were really weirdly inspired by like random things. And they were just kind of pieces of my brain that I was like, yeah, this will work. And I just threw it onto my tablet and was like, that works.
Yeah,
But yeah.
they were really awesome. I remember the day that you sent them. You and I like weren't together. Like Steve was like downtown or something, and we both were like freaking out trying to open them because we were like, oh yeah, Maddie sent her designs, but like they wouldn't open on our phones, and so I was like, hold on. And Steve's computer is kind of like old, and so it takes like a while to be functional. So I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I'm waiting for your computer to boot up. I finally got him on his computer and like sent him pictures, and we were like, these are so cool.
I'm so glad y'all like them. I went through so many different versions of them, like so many different versions, especially when I had to vector them. Like I kind of like changed them a little bit. But I was so happy with how they all turned out. I was like, I can't touch these anymore. Like I have to turn them in or I'll keep messing with them and I'll never get them done. I was like, they look great. I feel great about them. And I just sent them to y'all. I was like, I can't do it anymore.
This one also kind of reminds me of like the Illuminati. It's got
Yes,
like
that's
almost like
that's
a
what my
triangle.
brother said. Yes. Yep.
I think Steve and your little
Unintentional,
brother
but
could be friends.
yeah.
Well, what kind of comes next for you on your art journey? Like, what things do you have in the long term, short term, whatever you want to share?
That's a great question. Nothing really set in stone at the moment. I mean, I just moved and I'm still doing a random part-time job. So like I do find it hard sometimes to like sit down and like try and figure out my art journey. But right now my tentative plan is to go back to school and get my master's in illustration to illustrate books because my mom's work friend who I've done commissions for in the past, he has messaged me and he was like, I'm making a children's book for my two kids. Like, I really want you to illustrate it, you know? And I told him, I was like, I've never done that before. So I don't know if I'm the one for the job. And he was like, well, here's the like layout for like the plot for the book. Even if you just do like a few practice sketches to see if we're on the same page about the style, like that'll work too. And so I did, and he really liked them. And I was like, this is actually pretty easy. So he wants to move forward with like making the book and probably getting it published. But I feel like illustrating would be like really cool for me in the future because I love books, you know, and I feel like that would be a whole thing to get into. So probably school, but again, nothing's really set in stone.
I think that makes sense for you because, like, a word that comes to mind, like with your art, is like it's like commercial. So like it's really like crisp and clean and bright and communicative, and you know what you're looking at. And I feel like you really have a talent for that. And like illustrating sounds like a great fit, especially like leaning like more digital lately too.
Yeah, yeah. And illustrating I found is actually really fun. I find that I struggle a lot if I'm given a commission, they're like, just do whatever. And I'm like, I know you don't want me to do whatever because I've done whatever. And people are like, this isn't what I wanted. And I'm like, but you told me to do whatever. But like with illustrating, he sent me the layout of the book. Like he sent me the characters, the way they're described. And like I found that that was really easy to follow, like a lot easier to follow than I thought it would. So it just seems like it felt right to do it.
Yeah.
And I would like to go back to school so I can actually, you know, learn more about it and like be more proactive about that part of my talent, I guess. Just to learn more and get better at it.
I feel like when you major in something like art, people tend to think like, oh, okay, but like you need a backup, or like, what are you gonna do with that? Like, I mean, I have a
Yes.
degree in English, so people are like, what are you gonna do with that? And I'm like, I don't know. But
Exactly.
I feel like you're kind of like illustrating for the people. Like there are different avenues. Like it's not just like getting a degree in art doesn't just look one way, or you know, like having
Yeah.
art be your career just isn't just one way.
Yeah, there's so much that people like forget that involves people, like so many jobs that involve people doing art. And there's so much out there that, you know, I'm constantly being asked like, what's your backup plan? Like, are you going to be a teacher or are you going to work in galleries, as if that's the only two options? And like they forget that the arts run this place. Like, you know, there's so much more to, you know, getting a degree in art than, you know, sitting in a gallery and, you know, being an art teacher, which I could never do. I can't teach art. Like
Yeah.
I've learned that the hard way. You can't do it. I don't have the patience because I will grab that and I'll be like, okay, I'll do it myself, like kind of situation. Um, but there's so many different avenues that artists can take, especially nowadays. Like, you know, there's so much opening up for us and there's so many different avenues. So whenever people ask me my backup, I'm like, I don't have a backup. Do I need a backup? Like, do you think I need a backup?
Yeah. I
But
think
yeah,
it's great though, like getting to explore all those different avenues to
yeah,
see what like really gets you like fired up and fulfilled.
yeah.
Do you have any like lofty goals, like way down the road? Like you mentioned your parents having like Jazz Fest posters in their house. Like, is that something you would ever want to do?
I have considered, you know, designing Jazz Fest posters, but I feel like I don't yet have a sense of my own style for art to like think much about it, I guess. Because like when you think Jazz Fest posters, I automatically think of like Terrence Osborne and like his style, because it's very New Orleans styled art. And I don't know if very specifically have that style or something similar to it that like people of New Orleans want when they go to Jazz Fest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like it's a very specific style that like I just I've never actually gotten into. But like I love it. And I have my family has told me that like I should sell my art at Jazz Fest, sell my art, like in the art markets in New Orleans because there's a bunch everywhere. I just I don't know. I haven't set loftier goals for myself. I know my family's constantly getting on me about it, but I'm 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 working on it. I'm working on it. I feel like I need to keep making like more art though, because right now I've just been doing like random sketches here and there. So I need to get back into like making actual pieces and then figure it out.
I really like the Mambo Time one you did because of like
Yeah.
the little people that are like inside the design. I think
Yes.
that was really interesting.
I
And
loved that one. It was so fun to make. And like I never really oh, my family's gonna get on me about this, but I've never really been into Mardi Gras. I mean, I grew up with my brothers and my dad always being an Endymion, so like Mardi Gras was always a big part of our family life. But I just Mardi Gras got old for me really fast. And so when y'all are like, oh, like let's make a Mardi Gras design, I'm like, oh, but how am I gonna do that if I'm not like really into Mardi Gras? Like how am I gonna find that inspiration? And so I went more towards like the New Orleans aspect of Mardi Gras, like the celebration of it, and like the culture. So that's why I did the trumpets, because like the trumpets reminded me of, New Orleans and jazz music. And then from there it just kind of blossoms.
I don't like Mardi Gras either.
Yeah.
I always have to pee. There's never anywhere to pee. It's
Yes.
like I always get something spilled on me. I always
Always.
get hit in the face, like with
Like,
something.
and
So I'm not a super fan, but I do love king cake.
I like kind of the atmosphere of excitement that revolves around Mardi Gras, but I think the thing that throws me off from it is like the traffic that it causes, and like because I still have to go to work despite all
Hmm.
these parades, and it's like y'all are making things so hard. Um, but yeah, I think it's just because since I was too young to go to parades, I've been there because my dad was always riding and my uncle and like everybody else in my family, and I was always being hit in the face with beads. It got old for me so fast.
I also wonder if it became like a lot more touristy when you guys were growing up. Like,
Yeah, it
Maybe.
it definitely did. I feel like I it, the tourists definitely have been more drawn towards Mardi Gras the past couple of years, than it was when I was younger. Because I mean, I actually did enjoy Mardi Gras when I was little. Like it was always like a big family thing for me because like my uncles would come into town and stuff. It was more of like a family oriented kind of thing. And now it's just like so many tourists everywhere. And it's like I can't move. Like I can't get anywhere because there's so many people around. Um and like they yeah, they do Mardi Gras differently from like the New Orleans. Like you can tell who's a tourist here for Mardi Gras and who's actually here, who lives here, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it definitely has, its drawbacks.
Well, where can people find you if they, want to be in touch or follow you on the internet and those sorts of things?
Like my social media kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still get notifications for my art Instagram, so everybody's welcome to message me there. It I haven't posted in a while because I have felt like I haven't had anything to post. But I am still active, like I still get on it. So if somebody were to message me on there, I would still answer. And then there's also my regular Instagram, but I'm pretty much on all social media. So like my Twitter, I'm active on that as well. Um, and my email,
Sweet.
I'm active on email. Love email.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's a pleasure to chat with you and to like learn more about your process and your background with art and everything.
It was nice talking to you guys.
Also, if you're ever like visiting in Denver, hit us up. We'll take you to a
Yeah,
restaurant or something.
Yeah,
yeah,
for
that
sure.
definitely that would be great. Yeah, that'd be fun. I'm
Cool.
always here.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, bye, Maddie.
Bye.